back with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. So I was Nana's funeral today, and I got to watch it on Zoom. Zoom funerals suck. All funerals suck, really. But the Zoom audio was cutting in and out, and you're just sitting there, and you can't really fucking do anything about it. But Zoom is definitely better than nothing. It was a beautiful little funeral. It was held in a nice little old New Zealand white church. Just a perfect little simple church. Nana chose it. That's where she wanted to have her funeral. I was watching from bed. I put a shirt on, a nice white iron-collared formal shirt. No pants though. I didn't feel like the pants were necessary. I felt like Nana would have forgiven me for not wearing pants. It felt like a little bit of overkill putting on some pants while I'm sitting in bed under the blanket. So my auntie opened things up, and I don't know how the fuck she got through it. I don't know how she did it. And just a little side note, my cousin said my auntie received a message from a listener of this podcast today saying something along the lines of thanks for helping out all the alcos in New Zealand. Just randomly. I don't know how the fuck you traced down my auntie. I can't remember saying her name, but you showed a lot of ingenuity. Well done. So my auntie kicked it off. I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she got through it. It was very fucking tough. It was making me cry listening to her, so I don't know how the fuck she pushed through. But she pushed through, and she gave an overview of Nana's life from when she was a kid in Poland to the Siberian gulags, to the orphanage, to the feud she had with her mother-in-law, to her back injury, and then finally to her last days. I didn't know, actually, I found out today, that my Nana's perforated abdomen was actually from cancer. It must have spread from her lungs into her abdomen. So my auntie finished up. I pretty much cried throughout that whole thing. Then her partner got up, did a speech. He did a funny, nice speech as well. And then they played the audio of my eulogy. And as soon as I heard my own voice over the speaker, I started crying. I had to stand up. I had to walk around the room. I was crying. I was like, fucking hell. I don't know if I would have been able to get through it if I was there. But I stayed up till about 2 o'clock last night just writing it. I just wanted to get it as good as I could get it. It was basically the stuff I'd been saying on this podcast anyway, but I just wanted to get it as concise and meaningful as I could. So I spent a fair bit of time writing it, taking out all the fucking swear words. And at 2 o'clock last night, I finally got it to a point where I'm like, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm just going to record it and send it, and that's it. And that's what I did. So they started playing it, and I really couldn't listen. It was fucking hard to listen to. And then after my speech, my cousin Lucy gave a speech, and it was a fucking great speech. But she shared 3 pieces of advice Nana had given her over the years. And Lucy's been through a little bit of a hard time. She lost her mum, my auntie, around about 10 years ago. And then like 2 years ago, the house she grew up in burned to the ground. But I asked her to send me the 3 pieces of advice Nana gave me. So I'm going to share them with you now, because I think they're just perfectly simple bits of advice. Okay, so the first bit of advice Nana gave to my cousin Lucy was, you have to look forward, you can't look back. If you do, it will keep you stuck and you won't be able to keep living. No, you have to look forwards and walk. The second bit of advice was, don't waste any time while you can do things. Just do them. That's a very Nana bit of advice, just do it. But the final bit of advice, which is my personal favorite, is, I know it's hard right now, but one day it will all be okay. You just have to keep going so that you get to that one day. And Nana made it to her one day, and everything is okay. So then after Lucy's speech, Lucy's dad read out a speech from my dad, which was nice as well. And then Lucy's dad did a speech. And then it was to the priest. And then something very strange happened. The priest comes out and he starts talking about how beautiful the speeches were and how they encapsulated everything. And then he goes something along the lines of, is Michael's son, and I'm Michael's son, is Michael's son a priest? He's asking, is David Boyle a priest? And I don't know who he was asking in the front row because I couldn't see them, but there seemed to be a lot of confusion around that question. And then he's like, is he a priest? I could hear the spirituality in there. And I assume the whole room went, no, he is not a fucking priest. And I'm watching this on Zoom and I'm going, is he asking if I'm a priest? Is the priest at my Nana's funeral asking if I am a priest? David Boyle. And I'm sitting there watching it. I'm like, this guy has really fucking missed the mark on this one. He has never been more wrong about anything in his entire life. Well, maybe except for Jesus. But this is a close second. A real close second. But Nana would have fucking loved that. She would have been laughing her head off. She would be annoying all the other angels with that story right now. She'd be like, the priest thought David was a priest. David. And the other angels will be like, I get a feeling we're going to be listening to this story for a long time. But I didn't fully hear what he said, so I half ignored it. And then after the funeral, my dad called and said, the priest thought you were a fucking priest. And my two cousins messaged saying, the priest asked if you were a priest. And we said, no, he's a comedian. And I said, same thing. It's the same fucking thing. But it did make me happy because Nana really would have got a good laugh out of that. A real good fucking laugh. That's her bread and butter, that type of story. But I don't think I'm due in heaven for a good 100, 200, 400,000 years. I am going on the long detour to heaven, that's for fucking sure. There has been too many sins committed. And I'm just about to commit another one by doing a fucked up Friday from one sinner to another. But actually, quickly, the funeral was beautiful. Thank you to my auntie, my cousins, all the family. Sorry we couldn't be there. But if it wasn't for you ladies, everything would have fallen apart. So we are forever in your debt. Thank you. All right, now let's get back to some sinning. And this week we do have a fucking sinner. This week's Fucked Up Friday, really fucked up, and he wants to remain anonymous. So here we go. This is actually going to be a little bit weird, tacking this story on to the end of my Nana's funeral story. But hey, the show must go on. But anyone who is here just for the nice stuff, any family or friends or whatever who is listening just for the nice stuff, stop listening now because it's about to take a 180 and the rest of it's on you if you continue listening. So anyway, let's get back to the Fucked Up Friday story for this week. Thank you for sending it in. Okay, here it is. It's a Saturday arvo. I've started to cut back drinking to try and stop shit from fucking up in my life. I hadn't had a drink since about Tuesday night, as to which I got fucked up maggot. One visit from my mate later that arvo ended in a suggestion for a couple of beers at his house. I can't do a couple of beers, and I know that clearly in my head, but the next thing I can remember is carrying a carton of piss to his car, ready to go to his. We get to his, have dinner, couple of beers go down, and my brain is fueled with delish ethanol, and once that feeling is there, there is no stopping until I pass out or do something fucked. I start shotting whiskey with my mate and his girlfriend. Doom, doom, doom. And we're all having a good laugh. The night is coming to an end, and I'm pretty much 10 beers deep, and fuck knows how many shots, maybe 6 or 7. My mate was pretty maggot, so he decided to go to bed, and his missus and I stayed up chatting. Next thing she says is, I'd like to go into the kitchen and for you too. That's what it says, and for you too. I assume from the rest of the story, what he's trying to say is, she said, I'd like to go into the kitchen and fuck you too. The next thing he writes is, I was gobsmacked with zero intention of doing so, so I ignored it. About an hour or more of drinking and shots passes, and the next thing I remember is her bending over the kitchen counter and saying, can you fuck me here, daddy? Now this is the situation every guy dreams of being in, minus the fact it's one of your best mate's girlfriends, but that is a pretty big fact. But this situation is what a guy's brain is fucking wired for. There is only one thing you can do in this situation, and this is a tip for all fucking guys. You don't want to get into this fucking mess. If you are presented with this situation, the only thing you can do is fucking run. Run as fast as you can. And I mean just fucking drop everything you've got and run out of the house like you're being chased by a fucking bikie. You're going to look like a mental patient, but just fucking run. Run like the wind. He didn't run. So I'm maggot, I couldn't control shit, and my cock is hard. I slip it in her pussy and thrust 3 or 4 times, then come to my senses and jump off her, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? That's why you should have run. Just fucking leg it. Next thing I know, it's the morning and I've woken up on the couch just to remember the images of me doing my actions. Brutal. I am distraught. The first thing I do is make a coffee with Jack Daniels. Then I have to have a few more shots to straighten out my anxiety. I know I have to tell my mate what happened, but he needs me to run some errands with him in his ute, taking some chairs to his girlfriend's family's house. Oof. I'm still drinking beers in his car, and I plan to tell him when he took me past mine to grab some stuff. I go inside with him and smoke a cone, but then I just bitch out and I'm not able to tell him. We went to the pub and I stayed up drinking and smoking cones all night until Monday morning hits, and I am walking to work at 8 in the morning past school kids at Sacred Heart puking my cunt up. Oh, I do not miss that. Work the whole day is filled with anxiety and resentment. I could have eaten my own heart. At the end of the day, I call him and tell him what my fuckwit self had done. All for her to deny it, saying I'm making shit up in my head because I have mental issues with drinking. She still hasn't confessed, but safe to say a lot of bridges have been burnt. I cannot drink anymore because my life is upside down from it. I only had one follow-up question for him, and that was obviously, was she hot? And he said, she's not ugly, bit of a bigger girl though. Honesty. I like honesty. That's a brutal story, man. That's the type of shit that happens when you pound in the fucking booze. But thanks for sending it in. It takes a little bit of balls even just to fucking send that in. And it took some balls to tell you, mate. I would have went to the grave with that shit. Anyway, that's it for tonight. Thanks for sending the story. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you the fuck later.